Mr. Parmjit Dhanda.
Mr. Williams, thank you. And nearly there, last one. Mr. Williams, I've been in this race now for 12 days. I've been playing catch-up because I think others probably been in it for 12 months, maybe longer, who knows. But I think the key elements for me that brought me into this in the first place was a sense of frustration. I've listened to all 9 contributions. I passionately believe, actually, that any one of the 10 of us is capable of doing the job as Speaker. But I ask myself, and I ask colleagues in this House, do we all really actually get it? Do we understand the level of crisis out there? Do we understand the level of people's anger? And I'm not sure that we do. We've seen ourselves on the front pages of national and local newspapers day in, day out, and as the main item of news bulletins day in, day out. And then 2 Sundays ago, we had the results of the European elections, which has resulted in your representatives and my representatives in the European Parliament coming from the British National Party, 2 of them. Now that, I think, should send us a very strong message indeed. And that message isn't that the British people are racists, because I don't believe they are, but what they're telling us is they are thoroughly disengaged with us. They think this place is remote and distant from them. They think we are remote and distant from them as well. So what do we do now? I mean, that's the challenge, isn't it? That's the question we're being asked today. And the easy thing to do, the safe thing to do, is to retreat to someone who is a safe pair of hands, an establishment candidate. We have no end of quality candidates with great ideas. You've heard from them today. We've had half a dozen Knights of the Realms. We've got Privy Councillors, as I said the other day, probably more gongs than you see at the Olympic Games. But are they in touch? And do they speak the language of modern Britain? Will we be thanked for our choice tomorrow? I think that's part of the question we need to ask ourselves. What I'm proposing is actually quite different to what all of the other candidates are talking about. I think we need to change the settlement between the citizen and Parliament. I think we need a more deferential Parliament. I think we need to give more power away to local people and local communities. I think that's the way we re-engage with local people. In this day and age, when the rest of the public, our constituents, are out there using Facebook, Twitter and the internet, our front benches are dictating what the topical issue for debate should be. Why? We should be allowing them to decide that through internet polls, and I think if we did, the chamber would actually be far fuller if we were actually discussing the desires of local people who have that kind of direct input into their democracy. And this place, our apparatus in Westminster Hall, time and again we have debates there. I have, you have, on local issues, issues that matter to us, and regional issues as well. Well, I would want to move the apparatus of our adjournment debates and take them out of the capital to towns, cities, around the country, whether it's Gloucester or Bristol or Birmingham or Manchester. Give those areas a little bit of prestige, being part of Parliament. And actually, instead of ministers responding to debates, reading out sides of A4, I think you will find they will be responding to packed public galleries rather than one man and his dog and maybe a lobby correspondent. We would also be able to then re-engage local media, and I think it would be a good thing for those ministers to actually feel the heat of local public opinion. That's likely to change the culture of decision-making and actually, I think, lead to better decisions in the first place as well. Now, at the current rate of change, we will not in this House be representative of modern Britain at any stage in the next 100 years. I don't, I promise you, want to be a dictator. Honestly, I don't. But I think the next Speaker of this House does need to be a driver for change, someone who will cajole and try to persuade our party leaders to make this House more representative of our different classes, genders and races much, much quicker. And I can't believe in the year 2009 we're still talking about the idea of having a creche that we as members can pay for in this House. Actually, if the next speaker, whoever he or she is, doesn't implement that within the next 12 months, frankly, I think they will have failed. We need to make fundamental changes. We need a more deferential Parliament. I think we will be stronger ultimately. We will be more respected as politicians if we actually move the pendulum of power back to local communities. Mr. Williams, in conclusion, my father has always said to me, whilst bringing me and my two older siblings up, that nobody should actually put an artificial barrier up on our hopes, our expectations, and our ambitions. I think that should be a good motto for whoever the next Speaker of this House is, actually, because I want people to aspire to be here. I want them to be ambitious, regardless of what their background is, to create a House that is more representative of modern Britain. And if we're not brave enough to make changes here, in the mother of all parliaments, then where? And after the time that we've just had, if not now, then when? The rest is up to you.